Here are a few things you'll want to know if you're buying a piece of land. First, is it in a flood zone? Typically, when you're buying a house, in the disclosures, it will state if the home is covered by flood insurance. That is not necessarily a determination of if the home is in a flood zone, but it lets you know if they do have flood insurance that it is in a flood zone, or most likely is. But when you're buying land, there's no place in the disclosure to see if the land is covered by flood insurance because there's no structure on it yet. So the best way to know if it is in a flood zone is to reach out to a lender and ask them to check the flood maps. Second, is the property in tree growth? What is tree growth? Tree growth is a tax exemption for property owners who don't plan to build. With this, there's a big tax break to the homeowner. However, if they ever go to sell the land has to come out of tree growth, and there's a tax penalty with that can be passed on to the buyer. Next, when you're buying the property, has it been surveyed? Does it have a more or less deed? If you don't know what a more or less deed is, look at my prior video from a few weeks ago. If it does have a more or less deed, you definitely want to make sure that you have a surveyor do the legal description and have the property surveyed. Now, when you're putting the offer in, you could ask the seller to survey it. You can survey it prior to closing. Either way. Soils test. You want to make sure you can do with the land what you want to do with it. So if your plan is to purchase the property to build a house, you want to have a soil test done. You want to make sure there's suitable soils for a septic system and for your house. Now, with that said, if you already know what you plan to do there and you already know what you would like to build, I personally like the idea of saving a few $100s and skipping the soil test and doing a full-on septic design. Now, for a soil scientist to do a septic design, they have to test the soil while they're doing it. A soil test in today's money is anywhere from $350, maybe $400, whereas a septic design is anywhere from $650 to $700. However, if you do a soil test now and then a septic design 6 months from now, you're looking at that $300 to $400 cost plus that $650 to $700 cost. Now, is the piece of land raw land that's never been subdivided? Is it in a subdivision? Are there any deed restrictions? Are there any subdivision restrictions? So if it's just raw land, you don't need to check subdivision docs because there is no subdivision, but you do need to check the deed, and you'll want to check zoning with the town to make sure you can build what you want to build there or do what you'd like to do there. If it's in a subdivision, you want to check the subdivision documents to make sure there aren't any restrictions on what you'd like to build there. For example, common subdivision restrictions include no livestock, so you can't have chickens or farm animals or anything like that. Other subdivision restrictions might restrict the size of the house you can build. So if your plan is to build a 900 square foot ranch and the subdivision documents state that you can't build a home smaller than 1,500 square feet, you can't build what you'd like to build there, probably not the right piece of land for you. So with that, also check the zoning ordinance and make sure that zoning allows you to do what you'd like to do there, whether it's a small ranch, a duplex, a 4-unit, keep it for farming, whatever you'd like to do with it, just make sure it matches the town zoning ordinance. Now, these are a few things to get you thinking about what you should do if you're buying a piece of land. If you'd like more information or what else you should look out for, please reach out to me at 207-776-2130, and I'd be happy to go over this in more detail with you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. See you around.